Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Janine Campbell, and I'm happy to be back hosting today's webinar, Discover How to Deliver More Value to Your Organization with Claris. Today, we're joined by longtime Claris veteran, Education Content Manager Steve Romig, who will be showing you all the tools available in the Claris platform. Once again, thanks for joining us for this session. Let's get started. Today, we want to discuss and show the Claris platform. First, what is it? As promised, we've been delivering a lot to advance the platform since April. Claris is the rebranded platform that includes all of Claris FileMaker and the professional toolkit you already know, branded as Claris Pro, which works seamlessly with Claris Studio and Claris Connect, all in one unified package. So the platform you're familiar with and have mastered is now extended with new capabilities focused on your power and productivity. Our CEO, Brad Freitag, has said directly, without you, we deliver nothing. This is another way of saying that our job is to make you, our developers, more valuable. On that point, we've been very focused in recent years on delivering you power by opening the FileMaker platform, making it extensible to integrate with anything and more. Now we're adding cloud-native tools that complement that power in a few ways. First, by complementing the on-prem relational capabilities with cloud scale, meaning the potential for essentially unlimited data, high-scale transactions, and reach to anywhere. And second, by focusing new features on use cases that we can do better, like one-click summaries and charts and dashboarding, or building responsive views in 1/10 the time of a layout, or creating web forms to anonymous users at scale. So it's about giving you, the developer, the tools and freedom to build faster and better as you bring value to the business. Having the power and flexibility offered by the addition of these complementary technologies is super valuable for our developers. And even our own Robert Holsey had this experience when tackling a solution. As the platform and Claris Studio continue to evolve, it's going to free up developers to focus on the real challenges facing the business and putting the right tool in play for the right task or set of requirements. For those who are exploring the new Claris platform, we're hearing a lot of excitement. Words like amazing and impressive. And recently, Chris Moyer of the Moyer Group said he was blown away by how far it's come in a short time. These new capabilities have been coming very quickly since we first showed it a few months ago. And we also recognize that right now, many of you haven't been able to try it or test it yourself. So today, we want to help you imagine what you can do next to deliver even more value with a platform you can feel confident in. We'll take a step forward in showing you by focusing on Claris Studio and Claris Connect, and how these tools extend on Claris Pro, allowing you access to new features and use cases with faster ways to make you more productive. I'll be back later to talk about what you can expect next and ways to get your hands on these tools. But for now, Steve, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Janine. I am really excited to be here today to dive a little deeper into the Claris platform and what it has to offer. There is a lot to be excited about, and it is a great time to be a Claris customer. For the next several minutes, I will walk you through a demo using several products from the Claris platform and show you how seamlessly they all work together. So let's get right to it. Now today, we're in the shoes of the owner of Coastal Corners Renovation Services. They specialize in tasks like plumbing, painting, and electrical work. This small business already uses FileMaker Pro to keep track of their service requests. However, other aspects of their business could stand some digital improvement. For example, customers only have the option to make service requests by a phone call. Wouldn't it be nice if customers could schedule service online? And customers currently don't get appointment confirmations when their service requests have been scheduled successfully. And Coastal Corner employees could also use some help as well. For example, technicians must print out their daily job lists and update them at the end of the day, which makes it difficult for their boss to get the insight needed for business metrics. In short, they are still dealing with a lot of manual information and inefficiencies, not to mention paper and data integrity challenges. There's a better way to run a business with more insight, alignment, and shared visibility. Claris has the answer for all of these challenges facing coastal corners. So our goals for today are this. We want to create a web form that customers can use to submit a service request to the company. Second, we want to take the information customers submit on the web and enter it in an online calendar that Coastal Corners uses for project scheduling. Third, then we want to send an email to the customer confirming that appointment. Fourth, in addition, we will also notify the technician that a new entry has been added to their service calendar. And lastly, we will provide an easier way for technicians to see job assignments and give the boss a dashboard so they can check out different business metrics. The tools that we are going to use today are all part of the Claris platform. We are going to use Claris Studio to capture all of the requests that are submitted online, and then use Claris Studio to help with the technician's daily list of jobs, as well as the owner of the company's dashboard. Claris Connect will be used to integrate with the third-party tools that we want to use, including working with their online calendar and messaging customers and technicians. And finally, let's bring in Claris Pro, a special version of FileMaker Pro that allows the custom apps you already have to integrate with data from Claris Studio. Claris Pro will be the central hub for the workflow that we're going to build out today. And when we're through, the whole business will run more smoothly. Everyone will see what they need to see, and it'll be a huge leap forward. So if you're ready, grab your hard hat and your tool belt, and let's get started helping Coastal Corners in using the entire Claris platform. Now, as I mentioned, Coastal Corners uses FileMaker Pro to keep track of their service requests, and they can continue using their existing solution. But we are going to take things to the next level. Let me show you the simple solution Coastal Corners is using right now, which has been working fine for them. Still, they know they could improve the company's productivity and provide better customer experiences. The top development task on their list is a new way for customers to schedule service appointments on the web. But here's the blocker. Nobody in the company has any HTML or web experience, so building an interactive website is out of the question unless they hire someone to help them do it. But here's the good news. Claris Studio can provide the support Coastal Corners needs in minutes. Building a form in Claris Studio to capture customer service requests is a good place to start our demo. Claris Studio makes creating forms a breeze, and dare I say, it's a little bit of fun as well. The default form created by Claris Studio is geared more toward event registration, but we can make it work for Coastal Corners with a few tweaks. To begin with, we can rename the forms so that they are more meaningful for what we want to accomplish. And I should probably modify the confirmation page slightly to acknowledge a customer for their business and let them know what to expect once they submit a work request. But I need to focus most of my attention on customizing the service request form, as that is where a customer is going to spend most of their time and where the data they enter is going to be captured ultimately. For example, we need some way to capture the date that the customer requests a service. A date field would be perfect for that. And it might be helpful to grab the customer's telephone number as well, in case we need to get a hold of them. And of course, we need an address, so the technician knows where to go. Plus, we want a way for the customer to indicate what type of work they need done, like painting, electrical, or plumbing work. And finally, we also want to provide the customer a way to submit an image along with their service request. Something useful to show the work the customer wants to be done visually. Besides customizing what's on the form, we can also change the look and feel of the form to reflect the company's branding. Here, I can easily add a logo and change the form's heading to something more appropriate. This is looking pretty good. And when I'm ready, I can share this form with others. But before I do, let's add some data so we can see what the user experience will look like. And once our web form has been approved by the team, we can share it with customers with no additional licensing needed. Now let's shift our attention to Claris Pro. Claris Pro will be the central hub in our workflow that keeps everything together. From here, we will connect our newly created Claris Studio form to our Claris Pro custom app. This can be achieved by adding a table occurrence to our relationships graph. When you are using Claris Pro, you will see Claris Studio Data Source as a viable data source to choose from. From here, you simply choose the table you want to connect to and give it a name. We will call it From Claris Studio. By the way, if you were creating a custom app from scratch, this step would be done for you automatically. But as you can see, adding a table occurrence isn't too hard. In fact, adding a table occurrence from Claris Studio is just like adding a table from an external SQL source. While we're on the relationships graph, let's create another table occurrence based on our existing work orders table. We are going to do this so we can set up a special relationship between the From Claris Studio table occurrence and this new one, which we will call Claris Studio Work Orders. While we can't currently add schema directly to a Claris Studio table from Claris Pro, we can extend the schema on the Claris Pro side of things by using calculations and summary fields. Right now, Claris Studio doesn't create a primary key for us. And as you know from working with relational databases, a primary key is, well, really key. So let's create one here. I will make a calculation field called Record ID and use the getRecordID function to capture the record ID. In turn, I just created a primary key. Now with the primary key set up, we can now create the relationship we need between these two table occurrences. Before I save things, I want to make one more update to the relationship I just created, and that is to allow for creation of records on the Claris Studio work order side of the relationship. This way, when I am processing new records that come in from Claris Studio, I can add them to Claris Pro. I'm also going to create a simple form layout based on the Claris Studio table we just hooked up so we can see our records. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time making this look nice. This layout is so that we can see what is going on and so that we can use it later in some scripts that we're going to create. Sure enough, there's the record I created earlier. And by the way, if I happen to need to make any changes to my data, I can correct it right here in Claris Pro. And those changes will also show up in the corresponding table in Claris Studio, just as I would expect. Now that we have the tables linked together, let's create a way for Claris Pro to process the records coming in from Claris Studio. This is done with a simple script. I'll begin by creating a script called Process Studio Records. As with many things in Claris Pro, context is king, so the first step in my script switches to my newly created From Claris Studio layout. Next, I want to show all records to ensure I'm not working with a found set of records. A best practice when using data from Claris Studio in your Claris Pro custom apps is to use a refresh window script step in your scripts, so I'll add one here. This ensures you're looking at all the records from Claris Studio that you expect to see by forcing Claris Pro to refresh the data from the Claris Studio side of things. And, since I plan on looping through my records in a second, I need to make sure I'm starting on the first record in this table, and this script step will take care of that. Next, we want to check the records in the Claris Studio table and see if any new ones should be added to our work orders table. This can be accomplished by creating a loop in our script and checking whether the Studio Record ID field in our work orders table has a value or not. If it doesn't, then we know the record doesn't exist. From here, we will use a series of set field script steps to copy the data from the Claris Studio table into a new record in the work orders table. And after the end if script step, another go to record script step will instruct the script to go to the next record. Now usually one would set up this script to run on a schedule using either Claris Server or Claris Cloud. But for the sake of time, I'm going to run this script manually right now, and you'll see that the data I entered earlier in Claris Studio just came over into the work orders table. Now that we have our data in Claris Pro, let's put Claris Connect in action and do some really cool stuff with that data. Claris Connect is a cloud-based integration service that allows you to bring your everyday apps together to create powerful automated workflows. Claris Connect provides an easy-to-use interface to connect your on-premise or web-based apps together and saves you time normally spent on coding integrations, understanding APIs, and reading confusing documentation. The basis of Claris Connect centers around creating flows, a workflow that connects two or more apps or utilities. That is what we're going to create today, a flow. This flow will take the data we already have in our Coastal Corners Work Orders app and add a customer's service appointment to their company calendar maintained in the cloud using Google Calendar. Then it will email the customer a confirmation that their appointment has been scheduled. And finally, it will send a Slack notification to a channel that the technicians monitor to let them know a new appointment has been added to their job sheet. If this sounds complicated, it really isn't. Claris Connect has pre-built connectors and services that integrate workflows and share data between apps or data sources. These connectors work by checking for a defined action or trigger event to occur. In Claris Connect, you start by creating a project to save your flows. I'm going to use this existing project and create a new flow inside of it. I'm doing this simply because I've already logged into the services I will use for this demo. If I had created a new project, I would have had to re-authenticate myself to use Google Calendar, Outlook, and Slack. Under normal circumstances, especially if you are new to using Claris Connect, you will need an account for the various services you might want to use, and you'll need to be signed into them. That makes sense, right? There's no way that Claris Connect can do the things that it does without knowing what service or application to sign into and how to sign in. All flows start with a trigger, an action or event that tells them to start. In our use case, Claris Connect will begin when a new record is created in Claris Pro, which will be the trigger to tell Claris Connect to do its thing. Claris Connect also has a connector for Claris Server that we need to set up only one time to use. You will want to use this connector to incorporate your Claris Pro data into your Claris Connect workflows. As you can see here, there are connectors for both Claris Server and Claris Cloud, so you'll want to pick the appropriate one based on your platform. Today, we're going to use Claris Server. I am prompted for a domain for Claris Server, my username and password for the custom app I want to connect to, and the name of the custom app hosted on the server I want to connect to. If all goes well, I'll get a success message indicating that Claris Connect has successfully connected to my custom app hosted on Claris Server. From here, I click on the Continue button and am presented with some simple directions to follow that ensure that I can communicate from inside Claris Pro back out to Claris Connect. Among other things, these are the directions you'll need to follow if you want to pass information from Claris Pro to Claris Connect. These steps include: in step 3, we need to create a script incorporating a variable called JSON data. This includes the actual JSON object that includes the JSON data we will send to Claris Connect. In step 4, we're going to be adding the data we want to send to Claris Connect. The information we send to Claris Connect must be in JSON format. For this step, I am going to add the necessary information into another variable called info. And in step 5, we're going to use the insert from URL script step to send the data to Claris Connect. It requires us to use the URL at the bottom of the dialog box. I'm going to store this URL in a variable called URL. In addition, step 5 also provides us with some information we will need regarding curl settings. To make things easier on myself, I plan to store this information in a variable called, you guessed it, curl. Now, do I need to use variables for all these? Absolutely not. But it sure makes life a lot easier and cuts down on the complexity of my script. I am going to begin my script by defining these variables. I'll start with defining the URL variable. This one will equal the long URL at the bottom of the Claris Connect dialog. Next, I'm going to create the curl variable. This one will equal this string, which is part of step 5. Next, I'm going to define the info variable. This is where you will choose what data you want to send from Claris Pro to Claris Connect. You do this using the JSON set element script step. We are going to include one key value pair for each piece of data we want to send to Claris Connect. The key can be anything you want it to be, but it makes sense to have it be something that allows you to identify the associated value. And the value is the actual piece of data you want to send to Claris Connect. In our example, values will be the real names of the fields from our custom app, and I can select them from the left side of the screen as such. The last piece of information identifies the type of data you are sending. There is a comprehensive list of valid JSON types listed in the online help of Claris Pro, so I invite you to check that out. I will keep things simple and use JSON string for most of the data I send to Claris Connect. From here, I need to build things out and ensure they are formatted correctly. Quotes typically surround a key. The value comes straight from the field list over here, and I can manually type in the type. This single key value pair needs to be surrounded by square brackets, and then the end of the line needs to have a semicolon. So, here I have a correctly formatted key pair. Now, to make things easier, I can copy and paste this line to the other pieces of information that I want to send to Claris Connect. For my example, I will send everything, even though I might not use it all once I get to Claris Connect. But when I'm done, I leave the semicolon off the last key value pair and make sure I close things off with a close parentheses. You know what? I bet when you woke up this morning, you didn't know you were going to get a mini JSON lesson today, did you? And just for the record, this exhausts my knowledge of JSON if you were going to ask any follow-up questions during the Q&A section. And the final variable that I need to define is the global JSON data variable. This variable will include the info variable we just finished defining and some other information needed for Claris Connect. And the last step in my script will use the insert from URL step. I am going to set the target to a variable called target, but we'll use the URL variable and the curl variable that we defined earlier to round out this script step. If this were not a demo, you'd probably want to configure this script to be a script trigger that automatically runs when a new record is created. However, for this demo, I'm going to run this script manually on the record we brought over from Claris Studio when we are done setting up this flow. However, I need to run this script at least one time so that Claris Connect can confirm that I have a good connection between Claris Server and Claris Connect. If all goes well, the Save Trigger button will light up and I can continue building out my workflow in Claris Connect. From here, things should go a little bit faster. We can start building out the actions we want our flow to perform. As a reminder, we're going to use Google Calendar, Outlook, and Slack in our flow. To save some time, I've already signed into these services. Any service that you are logged into for a given project is listed at the top of the screen versus being listed with all the other connectors at the bottom of the screen. As part of running the script back in Claris Pro to test the connection between Claris Pro and Claris Connect, the execution of that script did something else. It also sent over some sample data, known as step data, to Claris Connect. You're going to see in a minute what I'm talking about, but it will make our job of building out this flow much, much easier. Now, the first thing we want our flow to do is to add a service appointment to the company's Google Calendar. This is done by selecting the appropriate connector from the list of available connectors. A list of available actions is presented. One of these actions is to create a new event, precisely what I want to do. Next, it asks me what account I want to use. If you are setting up this connector for the first time in a project you're in, this is where it would ask you to log in. I'm already logged in, so I'll select my account and click Continue. I'm presented with some options I need to select and some fields I need to build out. Since Google Calendar supports multiple calendars, I need to tell Claris Connect which calendar I want to add the service appointment to. The important field, however, when adding our service appointment to the calendar is the Quick Start text field. Like many other modern-day calendars, this field can accept a plain English phrase that includes the title of the calendar event along with the date. Remember that step data I mentioned earlier? This is when we get to use it for the first time. When I click this button to the right, Claris Connect allows me to pick from applications I've previously set up in the flow to grab some information from. Since I've only set up Claris Server at this point, it's the only one available to me. But look, I can see the data I sent over from Claris Pro, and I can use this data to build a descriptive title for my calendar event. And I can even mix in some static text if I want by typing directly into that field. The last step is whether I want a send notification to be sent or not. Once I've got everything filled out, I click Save, and guess what? I just added my first action to my flow. It really is that easy. And the process is pretty much the same for any action you add to your flows. You pick an action, and you fill out some information using data you already sent to Claris Connect. Let's continue building out our flow by adding Outlook to the mix. We want Outlook to email the customer that their service request has been received and confirmed. I choose the Outlook connector and select Send Mail from its extensive list of actions it can perform. I then choose the account I want to use and click Continue. And then, much like the experience of adding an event to a calendar, I fill out the fields on the screen to configure an email to be sent out. When needed, just like before, I can click on the button on the right to access the step data I sent over. This will be convenient when building out the body of an email because you can really personalize it with the customer's information, like their name, the type of appointment they scheduled, and the date they requested. I've got everything filled out the way that I want, so I'm going to click on Save to continue. Okay, the email's ready to go. The last thing to do is to configure Claris Connect to send a message to the technician that a job has been added to their schedule. Claris Connect provides a bunch of options for this as well. But for this demo, we're going to use Slack since it provides the flexibility of being accessible from anywhere including a mobile device, which works perfectly for a technician on the go. Again, the process of adding Slack messaging to our Claris Connect flow is straightforward. I sign into Slack, pick the proper action, and select the proper data from our JSON data. In just a few clicks, we have integrated 3 popular but totally separate services in calendaring, email, and messaging with no programming, no knowledge of APIs, and no reading of complicated documentation. Now, I wasn't tracking how long this took, but it's safe to say it was only a couple of minutes. If I were developing these interactions using APIs, it's probably also safe to say I'd still be trying to figure out how to start. In all, this is a huge win for Coastal Corners and is only scratching the surface of the capabilities of Claris Connect. One last thing before we leave Claris Connect, which is the most important step of them all. You must enable the flow. It's off by default, so you can test your flow and troubleshoot things if needed. But this flow won't do anything until you enable it. Once enabled, it will run when a new record is sent from Claris Pro. Let's check it out. I have gone ahead and arranged my screen here so you can see all of the services that we are using in our flow today. I placed Claris Pro in the upper left-hand corner. I will launch the script manually in Claris Pro and let's see what happens. Sure enough, a calendar event was created, I received an email confirming my appointment, and a Slack message was received letting the technician know that a new appointment has been scheduled. The process was fast, and I didn't need to do anything. And in the end, the customer is happy. What'd you think? Do you have some uses for Claris Connect? I bet you do. Let us know what your use cases are in the WebEx chat. As promised, let's do 2 other things in Claris Studio that will make it easier for the technicians to do their jobs and put a smile on the face of the owner of Coastal Corners. The technicians need an easy way to view the service requests they need to accomplish. But they don't necessarily need the ability to manage other users or create their own forms. The technicians will interact with Claris Studio in a browser on their phone or tablet and only need a list of jobs to refer to. In this case, Coastal Corners will use a feature of Claris Studio called a hub to assign a unique view of available data to the technicians. A hub is a collection of views a team manager can share with selected team members. The technicians just need to see a specially designed view of the work that needs to be accomplished that day. A list detail view would be perfect for that. For those of you who have made list detail layouts in Claris Pro, you are already familiar with the power and the ease of use they can provide, and their usage is similar when using Claris Studio. You see a list of records on the left side of the screen, and when you click or tap on one of them, the details for that record show up on the right side of the screen. Goodbye printed out work requests and hello digital efficiency. Team managers create the list detail and other views they want to give access to and add them to a hub. Then, the team manager invites team members to use that hub. When an invited team member logs in, they will only see the views a team manager gave them permission to see and won't see any of the other options on the left side of the screen. This is the perfect setup for a technician in the field who might need to check the details of a job while at a job site. Now, while a view of this size might be appropriate for use on a tablet, phone users might find it too big. But look what happens automatically as a window gets smaller in Claris Studio. Claris Studio automatically resizes the window to display and function correctly on whatever device you're on. In other words, you don't have to design multiple views for the different devices that might use Claris Studio. Amazingly, Claris Studio does all of that for you. Now, let's make the owner happy. Claris Studio supports charting and the concept of dashboards. You can easily create different views of the business and make them available for the boss or other teams to look at. Creating a chart is simple. Let's say we want to create a chart to track the workload of each technician. Simply click on the appropriate heading in the spreadsheet and choose Chart, and you are immediately shown a chart that you can customize further if necessary. And this is one way that you can start creating the dashboard view for the owner. Simply click on Create Dashboard to create a new view automatically and customize this view just like any other view in Claris Studio. You can add additional objects like charts or summary information, anything to keep the owner of Coastal Corners smiling and happy. This is the business intelligence that was lacking before. Now, the owner and his team can stay aligned and view progress in real time. And in the end, everyone's happy. To sum up what we talked about today, first, customers can interact with Coastal Corners in ways they were unable to before using Claris Studio. Second, the data captured using Claris Studio is now being used to automate processes that were either manual or didn't even exist using Claris Connect. And finally, all this data is managed in one central place using Claris Pro, a product Coastal Corners already uses and loves. And obviously, this is just one scenario that incorporates the entire Claris platform. With each release, Claris Studio adds important functionality to accomplish more robust and viable tasks like event management, questionnaires, surveys, and vacation request forms, just to name a few examples. I encourage you to stay tuned to Claris.com, the Claris community, and our YouTube channel for the latest information about Claris Studio and the Claris platform enhancements. I want to thank you for your time today, and I hope you found the webinar helpful and informative. It's time for me to pass things back to Janine for a few closing comments and remarks before we open up the Q&A session. So Janine, the virtual floor is yours again.
Thanks, Steve. That was a great demonstration showcasing the complete platform at work. Now, it's time to enter your questions for our team to answer. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. But before we do that, let's take a couple of minutes to learn about two programs Claris is offering for you to take the first step and get your hands on the platform. The best way to get the platform is through either the Problem Solver Circle or the Claris Platform Bundle. Both programs allow you to use the full Claris platform to achieve the power and productivity you saw today. For unrestricted access to employees, contractors, and consultants, the Problem Solver Circle is the most flexible option to support tackling the high priorities in your backlog. The Claris Platform Bundle is for specific users, and you can choose the number of users you'll need to get started. Simply decide if you'd like access for your entire organization or would rather specify the number of users you need. These are your best options to get your hands on the complete platform so you can add more value going forward. And both programs provide access to all of our great technologies. So if you're interested in exploring which program is right for you and how to get access, simply scan the QR code and sign up to learn more. Someone on our team will be happy to guide you to your next step. Now, let's answer your questions. Okay, we have some questions and I will get to as many as we have time for. And if we don't address your question, not to worry, we can find time to follow up directly after the webinar. So the first question that I'm going to put out to you, Steve, is when clarifying FileMaker Pro versus Claris Pro. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between those two?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that's probably everybody's number one question and maybe a little cause of confusion, but yes, it's true. There are two versions of the product. One is FileMaker Pro and the other one is Claris Pro. Fundamentally, they do exactly the same thing. So if you're comfortable using FileMaker Pro already, then you will have a zero learning curve using Claris Pro. The major difference between the two is that Claris Pro supports logging in with a Claris Studio ID and FileMaker Pro doesn't. That means you would use Claris Pro to interact with Claris Studio, where FileMaker Pro would have no concept of what Claris Studio is. So that's the version you would want to use, Claris Pro. That's the version you would want to use if you want to use Claris Studio.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. I'm sure our attendees here do as well. Another question about multi-languages. So in Claris Studio, can we have the first question be preferred language and then divide into two questionnaires, one in English and one in Spanish? Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the answer today is no. However, that would require branching and scripting on the Claris Studio side of things, which are two things that we're definitely looking into for a future version of Claris Studio. So keep your eyes open for that. And if you haven't noticed already, versions of Claris Studio are coming fast and furious. So look every couple of weeks and maybe you'll see that feature appear in a future version of Claris Studio.
Thank you so much, Steve. I think we have time for a few more. Bear with me, team. I'm just going through some of these questions. We have a question about whether or not the Claris Platform bundle includes Connect, and I just want to verify for everyone here it does. So what features in Claris Studio are currently released to the public? Steve, do you have a quick summary on that? As I understand it, releases are coming fast and furious, so
oh yeah, there's a whole bunch. So for those of you who were with us at the beginning when Claris Studio was launched, you know that basically what it could do was create forms, but it's come a long way in just a short period of time. I'm just going to try to rattle off them off the top of my head. We've got hubs, we've got list detail view, we've got a spreadsheet view, we have the ability to well, again, the hubs with, we have all different kinds of views. We have Kanban board. I didn't even show that in my demo, but we have a really cool looking Kanban board that you can use for managing projects. The nice thing about Claris Studio is, again, as Janine said and I said, is we're coming out with new versions every couple of weeks. So if you just checked it out a couple of weeks ago, chances are there's something brand new. In fact, we just came out with a new release in the last day or so. So there's a lot to be excited about, and more advancements coming to the product in rapid succession.
Yep, absolutely. Great. Well, so it looks like we're just about out of time. I do see some questions that we weren't able to get to, so we will work on addressing any of your questions, but you can always reach out to our team as well if you have additional questions or clarifications that you're looking for that we weren't able to cover today. I thank you all for your time. I do want to also clarify, we do have some additional questions about the offers related to the Problem Solver Circle and the Claris Platform bundle. So I do want to just clarify, those are available in 1, 2, or 3-year options. So if you're looking to explore what was shared today on your own and get your hands on the product, those are the best ways to do so right now. And so I encourage you all to reach out to our teams via scanning this code on the screen with any additional questions that we weren't able to cover. We will do our best to support you, and look forward to talking with you all again very, very soon. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks, Steve. Great demo.
Bye, everybody.